Yuri Gagarin was the first man to enter space. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone ignorant of this fact. The knowledge of this feat seems almost universal. The Soviet cosmonaut's name inseparable from history. Neil Armstrong was the first man to set foot on the moon. Perhaps an even greater feat. This milestone is probably what cemented the USA as the winner of the space race. Like Gagarin, the Statesian astronaut is destined to be remembered forever in the collective human consciousness. And though he raced to the patent office on the exact same day, it isn't Alicia Gray who is credited with inventing the telephone. No, that would be Alexander Graham Bell, whose patent was approved first. People always remember the first of everything. The first man in space, the first man on the moon, the first who invented the telephone, such and such. All firsts cease to be men the day they fulfill their legend. They become myth. No matter what, their statues can never be taken away, never repeated. Nobody cares about the second guy who achieved something. Nobody cares about the second inventor of the telephone. I began putting on my undergarments. First the sweatpants and sweatshirt, then a specially made bodysuit with built-in ventilation and cooling. I already got my diaper on, though I don't have a bowel problem. Always better to have one than not, just in case. The suit I slip into is specifically made for environments that don't allow traditional cooling, like space. To minimize sweat, water-filled tubes line the inside of the costume to cool the wearer's body. Additionally, little vents are built in to exhaust moisture that may appear as a result of exhalation. I wonder how much harder this might have been all those years ago. What were those men feeling when they put these on for the first time? How about when they put them on before their fateful accomplishments? Was there anxiety? Excitement? Fear? Wonder? There must have been all that and more, but tied to something never before experienced by anyone. Something that can never be accurately imagined, only really felt. Something that happens for the first time ever. No person prior found themselves in the same position as you, the first. And no person after will ever be able to say they were the first. It's all you, in that very moment. Do you know the second man that went to space was? Alan Shepard. Okay, maybe you did know that one. But what of the third? The fourth? The fifth? My point is, at some point, a thing ceases to be so amazing and becomes another occurrence. At some point, you stop keeping track of the numbers, but you still remember the first. Who remembers the 825th? Nobody. What about the second man who stepped on the moon? Buzz Aldrin, right? And back when I was a kid, I was a total geek about space. Whenever the moon landing came up, I'd always give Aldrin his due credit. Instead of Neil Armstrong was the first man to step on the moon, yada yada yada. I'd make sure to say Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first to land on the moon. That way, both men would get recognition. I don't say that anymore. Life is not a participation trophy. They may have indeed landed at the same time, sure, but there's only one who was the first to step out. That man's name is more than immortal. It's etched into the very fabric of human achievement. The second guy to step on the moon's surface is just about as important as the 825th guy to go to space, if you ask me. After putting a cap around my head, I slid on the bottom half of the bulky white spacesuit. I then float through the air effortlessly, slipping into the top of the gear. I attach everything together, gloves too. The huge suit isn't as heavy as you might imagine. There's no gravity after all. The helmet is the final component. I slot the piece over my head, the barrier between me and my surroundings becoming palpable. I find myself contained in what is essentially a glove for the whole body. It's nothing I haven't done before. I've achieved more than the average man can ever dream of. Something that was inconceivable for the majority of history. And not just human history. All of history. Only a century ago, this would all have been beyond the realm of imagination. You already had people theorizing what was out there. But there's a big difference between the real deal and what people can conjure up. Even this great triumph now is a commodity. 825. What a fucking joke. As I grew up, I figured I'd just kick the can down the road until I got to my own first. Like the pieces would somehow fall into place on their own. I breezed through university, hardened myself through the rigorous training. Now I'm here. And I've never felt emptier. I've never wanted to live. That doesn't mean I want to die. I don't want either. I don't really care, to be honest. Don't want to live, don't want to die. I have nothing to live for, and no reason to die. It's quite odd. And I never realized that until I went up here for the 5th time. I don't want it all to have been for nothing, you know? To have done all this just to be a footnote in a history book. Just to have a Wikipedia page with 100 or so paragraphs. I've counted, but it tends to shift. I'm not some ant to be rolled over by the march of history. Once humanity becomes fully spacefaring, what difference will there be between the 825th and the 1 billionth? The airlock closes behind me, and the air flushes out. The doors open into deep outer space. Endless black void for eternity. An incomprehensible space filled with an incomprehensible amount of celestial bodies scattered around. Not my first spacewalk. Here's something interesting. The first 3 men to die in space were the 3 Soviet cosmonauts of Soyuz 11. Georgy Dobrovolsky, Viktor Patsayev, and Vladislav Volkov. They fully boarded the first ever space station, Salyut 1, and spent a total of 22 days in the craft. When they were making their journey back to Earth, a valve ended up damaged due to no fault of their own, and the men died of asphyxiation in less than 1 minute. Their bodies were recovered upon landing. The crew perished 68 kilometers above the Kármán line, the boundary between space and Earth. Thus, they were the first to die in space. If only the valve had failed 68 kilometers lower than it did. If only it failed below the Kármán line. If that had been the case, the first death in space might still have been up for grabs. It's not the end of the world. I'm nothing if not adaptable. I crawl my way over to the panel we've been instructed to repair. The tether hangs onto me despite me cutting it earlier. If I really floated away, I assume it would just gently slip away with me. Right now, it just hasn't experienced enough movement. Don't worry. They'll remember. Everyone who ever set foot in space thought of Gagarin. Everyone who ever set foot on the moon thought of Armstrong. That's the way it'll be for all of eternity. Men larger than life, synonymous with the future of our species. Men who it will be impossible to forget. Using controlled bursts of nitrogen, I launched myself away from the panel I pretended to fix. Launch myself at the other astronaut whose tether I also sabotaged, whose thrusters I damaged before we went outside. Rookie mistake for him not to check his equipment more thoroughly. For centuries to come, they will talk of me. For millennia, I will be in the back of every astronaut's mind. During every spacewalk and every psychological evaluation. My name, forever known. My achievement, mine, and only mine. I will be here, inseparable from humanity. No matter how far they go, they will all be aware. There won't be a soul who won't remember the first murder-suicide in space.